Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody this morning, Friday 19th December, a very last cabinet meeting for the year. We're here at Abbey House. I am Councillor Betty Thomas, Chair, and I would like to welcome you all in, those in person in the room and those online. And special welcome to our newest cabinet member, Councillor Clegg. It's good to have you here. Obviously, Councillor Clegg has replaced Councillor Gascoigne, who has gone on parental leave. So I don't have any other chair's announcements. So we will go on to apologies. Have we got apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Hayley Greenstein and
Thank you. And nobody joining. We do have Andrew Crawford, yes, Councillor Crawford, joining online.
Do you need to do a roll call just to click where we are? I can do if you'd like.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas.
Present in the room.
Councillor Coleman. Present in the room. Councillor Crawford.
Present remotely.
Councillor Fawcett.
Present in the room.
Councillor Fortune.
Present in the room.
Councillor Pickles.
Present in the room.
And Councillor Clegg.
Present in the room.
Thank
you. So apologies done. Minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting on the 28th of November?
Chair, I was present as well.
Absolutely, thank you. And Councillor Gascoigne is not here. But for everybody who was present, apologies. Have you read through the minutes and are you happy to agree?
Yep.
Okay. Sign those up at the end. Thank you. So going on to any declaration. They have anything to declare monetary pecuniary interests or otherwise? No. So urgent business. Gosh, I thought
we're all in trouble.
Yes, I thought Mr. Bennett had something to declare. Urgent business. I don't believe there's any, but at this point we mentioned the it's easy to declare. The emergency exit.
He doesn't like his stuff at all.
I was just going to say sorry. I tend to drop in just to that section in case anyone has any queries. I didn't mean to interrupt, Chair. I'm very sorry, Linda.
Thank you. Yes, for Robert's Councillor Clegg's, you probably know the drill already, but if there was an alarm that went off, you follow Matthew, I think is probably the best advice, and the emergency exit through there. I don't think there's any other urgent business.
No, Chair.
Then we go on to public participation, and I know that we have 2 registered speakers. Is that correct?
That's correct. Councillor Sarah James and Councillor Catherine Foxall.
Thank you. I was going to ask Councillor Foxall, are you here as scrutiny chair, or are you here as a member of the public, or don't you mind?
Hi, I'm here as co-chair of joint scrutiny.
Okay. Well, if it's okay, the recommendations are coming after this as member of the public. So I'll take Sarah first. Is that okay, Councillor James? Fab. So, Councillor James, can I ask you to speak now? Hello.
Hello.
We have a copy of your notes here. So thank you for supplying those.
Excellent. Yeah, joining on a phone, so I wasn't very confident, and I do keep getting an occasional error message, but I will try to address you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm here. I was one of the councillors who asked for the original waste vehicle decision to be called in, and I did go along to the joint scrutiny meeting about that, and have really appreciated that further examination of the decision. That meeting and the sort of longer report you have here ahead of this committee has made it much clearer what's driving that decision, but I do remain concerned by two things. I'd like to mention those to you before you discuss that later today. Firstly, the timeliness of the decision. This decision process was not timed in line with the process as it's outlined in the waste vehicle purchasing strategy. And in particular, there doesn't seem to have been any opportunity in the timeline to make a business case for increasing the capital budget, which would have been essential to any other decision than the one that is being recommended to you today. Currently, we seem to be budgeting for the status quo ahead of time. And so then when we make a decision, we can only financially consider the status quo when that decision is coming forward. We will need to replace most of the remaining waste vehicles within the next few years. So regardless of your decision today, can Cabinet please commit now to reviewing the vehicle options and capital budget far further ahead of the next purchase decisions in line with the process in the purchasing strategy? Secondly, I am still very concerned about the climate impacts of this decision and how they've been assessed and presented here. The whole reason we have a net zero target is because we know that business as usual is a climate disaster and we have to make serious changes to how we operate services. Here we're looking at the most polluting part of the council's operations, one that's been identified as needing radical change to achieve the council's climate change priority targets. And yet the climate impact assessment tool finds that business as usual vehicle selection comes out as a green choice. Environmentally, it clearly would be better to move away from diesel fueled waste lorries, giving ourselves a green tick because newer polluting lorries are cleaner than older polluting lorries is a con. It's not like there's any real world option to replace lorries that are too old with equally old and inefficient lorries anyway. So that's not an improvement and an upgrade. There is, in fact, a significant locking in of carbon emissions for a vital council service for the expected lifetime of the new vehicles, if you follow the recommendation and agree to that today. Regardless of your decision today, I would like to ask the Cabinet Member for Environmental Services, Climate Action and Nature Recovery to review the climate impact assessment tool and just make sure that it can honestly flag the climate impacts of council decisions. Because if we use it in a selective way that does not highlight decisions that will result in high carbon emissions, then we're deluding ourselves. So if you do decide to go with the diesel vehicles today, at least do hold up the values of this council and do it in a transparent way. Don't greenwash it, which I'm really concerned this report does at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. And we will discuss it you discuss your comments now, but I was just going to ask if anybody had any questions or clarification for Councillor James. No. Thank you, Councillor James. We will consider your comments and really appreciate you joining us today. Councillor Foxall, thank you for joining us. So we're going on to the next item, recommendations from other committees, which we do have obviously in our agenda pack. But we welcome your comments and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and thank you for allowing me to speak, and welcome to Councillor Clegg in this new role. So the decision regarding the purchase of the new waste vehicles was discussed by joint scrutiny and called into the committee because there are clear conflicts with our council's commitments to act on climate change, and the committee felt the decision was not supported by sufficient or convincing evidence. This is an opportunity missed to start to make incremental changes. A business as usual decision that's predicated on core assumptions not being challenged, and very clearly not just a decision about whether or not the right vehicles exist. So this question of how the status quo needs to change in order to allow new ways of working and providing our services was really at the heart of the substantial discussion that we had in our joint scrutiny meeting. And rather than relitigating this decision today, it was clear to me that the main outcome of that meeting was to try and urge both the South and Vale cabinets to think creatively and innovatively about how the process of planning for the next time such a decision needs to be made can be improved to ensure that we are ready to shift away from the diesel-powered vehicles, which remain the major part of our carbon emissions, and increasingly glaringly so, particularly as we improve our leisure centres. So really, I think that's why I wanted to speak to you today, because I really did want to kind of come back to this question of what is the role of joint scrutiny and what value are we trying to add. And I think there were three quick key points about what we felt has to change to make different decisions possible in the future. And I spent a lot of the summer watching women's sport, and one of the phrases that keeps coming back to me is that being ready is not a feeling, being ready is a decision, and we have to decide to be ready. We can't just wait until we feel ready, until readiness is available within the status quo. Three key things. One, we need to specify to our contractor the rounds that we want, particularly in our larger towns, and it needs to be clear that we want rounds that are EV possible. We need to think more creatively and collaboratively about charging infrastructure and moving away perhaps from this assumption of a single depot. And as Councillor James has just discussed, we need to plan for different decisions in the budgeting process so that different decisions become possible within the financial envelopes that are available. Other councils are already making these decisions, and not just urban councils, rural councils are as well. With a new depot, a new contract, we have an opportunity to embed this shift before local government reform happens, as I understand that, as our committee understands, that further decisions are coming within the next 12 or 18 months. And I'm sure I speak for the committee as a whole in saying that we'd be very pleased to look at this again as this process of looking ahead goes on. And we'd really like to prevent the need for further call-ins by being involved at an earlier point in the process. And as I said, particularly Councillor Clegg, this seems like an ideal project for you to take on in your window of opportunity that you have in this role. So thank you very much. We do appreciate the amount of effort that it involved from Cabinet and officers to respond to our call-in, and we do appreciate that discussion was held. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Foxall. Would anybody like to comment? Oh, yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Foxall, and thank you for the work of joint scrutiny. Can I just clarify that I'm assuming you're not asking Cabinet to approach scrutiny, either joint or Vale scrutiny, asking you to do work. You're going to offer to look into what we're doing so that you can offer where you get involved. My understanding is we shouldn't really be directing you to be doing things. It's for you to be asking to where you feel that you can add value and being brought in. I think we're both saying the same thing. I'm just getting clarification from you.
Yes, absolutely. It's about you feeling comfortable to use us as a sounding board for potential different kind of decisions that might be possible, and yeah, to be involved in these processes as policies and decisions are developed rather than at the point that they're made. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's for you to be pulling us for information as opposed to us pushing for you to ask us, about a specific topic. Thank you. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Fine. Thank you.
Sorry, if I could just add though, I think what was really clear from the Joint Scrutiny Committee is that there is real expertise among the councillors within both councils, and the Cabinet should not be afraid of asking individual councillors where expertise is available.
Yeah, sorry, I've got to come back on that. You're right, but I think we've also got expertise in the officers, and it's the officers that really we hold to account for what we provide. Because if a member of the council provides advice which then proves to be incorrect, there's not very much we can do about it. But if an officer provides it, then there is something we can do about it. So yeah, I'm willing to hear, but we just need to be a bit cautious about where we take our advice from.
I would say ideas rather than advice, but yes, okay. Yes, absolutely take the point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Catherine. Excellent suggestion and following the caveats with Councillor Coleman. Very, very happy to see that happen. I'd like to see your opinion though on not only involving joint scrutiny but potentially also SEAC, given that quite a lot of this is climate related. Would that make sense to you to involve both committees? I realised I was chair of SEAC until only Monday evening, only after Tuesday, so not really partial on this, but just curious how you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that would be the obvious venue. There's a clear pipeline from SEAC chair to Cabinet cabinet role. So you will know better than me what SEAC, but I think again, yeah, SEAC would be the obvious forum for a discussion such as this. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a sensible direction in which to go, because obviously, as I've held that portfolio, the climate and nature portfolio before, and you do have a more significant interaction with the committee chair, and I think that's probably where. And then obviously, as Councillor Coleman said, if scrutiny, joint scrutiny can be, and I can appreciate it's a moving feast and everything is sort of developing, but yeah, if joint scrutiny can be really on us to bring things in when they need to at an early stage, I think that's really helpful. So I would like to thank you, Councillor Vauxhall. It's really good that you're here, and your points are noted in the agenda and the recommendations, and we will consider and discuss those recommendations when we come to the point, the item in the agenda. And can I assure you that we have really valued the input from joint scrutiny, and we've had a lot of discussion since joint scrutiny took place, and I think it has been a very positive action that you've taken to call in. So thank you. Yeah. Okay then, so we will move on to the first substantive item of the agenda. The computer comes up, which is item number 8, the budget monitoring report from April 2025 to September 2025, and that will be introduced by Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. So this report reviews the Council's revenue and capital expenditure performance against budget during the 25 to 26, the end of month 6, which is September. So Cabinet will recall that the budget for 25-26 was agreed by Council on the 12th of February 2025. The net revenue budget, as outlined in paragraph 4 of the report, was set at 24.8 million. This has increased to 25 million, the increase reflecting the carry forward of unspent one-off project budgets from the year 24-25. That's normal practice. In terms of revenue, as explained in paragraph 5, table 1, the forecast is for an overspend on service expenditure of over £500,000. However, investment income is expected to exceed budget by 1.3 million, giving a total forecast revenue underspend of 0.8 million. Budget carry forwards are expected at year end, and these will be firmed up in the coming weeks. On capital, the budgeted approved programme at the end of September was, as shown in paragraph 16, 24.2 million, against which 6.2 million had been spent. As noted in the budget setting update report also being considered today, the capital programme continues to be reviewed and challenged, with the member of challenge meeting taking place on the 22nd of December. I recommend that Cabinet notes this report.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Okay.
Yeah.
From me, if that's okay. On paragraph 11, it notes that the recycling budget was based on 2024-25 budget, which was only 10 months, and that actually it was about £100,000 more than that. Was that basing on the 10 months earlier budget? Was that a simple error of just missing out a couple of months, or was it a case of falsely extrapolating and perhaps the other months were higher?
It was accrual, wasn't it? It was just the way that the bills. We were previously working from not using the full financial year from the beginning of April. We've now aligned that, which basically meant that we were behind in the payment. So therefore we didn't get the full year's worth of value. So this is an adjustment.
Yeah.
So it's not that we've overspent or underspent, it just arrived in the wrong one.
Thank you. And then certainly on paragraph 14, it mentions we're not anticipating few further neighbourhood plans to be finalised. So that's just because parishes are not bringing them forward.
Yeah.
Is there any scope for perhaps using that revenue, that budget, to support parishes that are starting to develop their neighbourhood plans? I know the government recently drew support for them. Is there any scope for that, or is that?
Yeah, so I don't think. I think it comes in year, so it would need to be spent in year, and the money would be whatever is underspent. As I said, it will get moved into the following year anyway, but not necessarily against specific tasks like that.
Okay.
But as far as I'm aware, the neighbourhood plans are still we're still reviewing them, and my understanding is that we're still encouraging parishes and towns where they've got a neighbourhood plan that certainly it's come up to 5 years or it's older than 5 years, they should be reviewing those. And I think the council have agreed to offer to support. So
Do you want to come in on that?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chair. We are very committed to our supporting our towns and parishes in their process of getting neighbourhood plans either in place or reviewed if they're in time for review. The major way we've been able to add support is through some template policies and documents that we've generated, particularly commissioned by the South Oxfordshire team, and they've very generously made them available to our towns and parishes across the Vale as well. It doesn't do all the work for them, but it saves them a lot of the consultancy, which is what the government block grant would have paid for. Them going out to consultants to say, how do we do a plan on biodiversity? How do we do a plan on cherished heritage assets or whatever? Say, here's a sample that, with a bit of tweaking, will work for you.
Thank you. Did anybody have any further comments or questions? Well, I would like to thank Simon and his team for preparing this report. And Councillor Coleman for introducing it. And I would ask everybody if we could note this report today.
Noted.
Thank you. So going on to the next item, and Councillor Coleman, you're introducing this as well. Budget setting 26-27 update report.
thanks, Chair. So this report is to inform the Cabinet of the progress made to date in preparing the revenue budget for 2026 to 2027, that year, and the capital programme for 2026-27 to 2030-31, i.e. for a 5-year period. So revenue next year and the capital for a 5-year period. The report builds on the budget scene setting report considered by Cabinet back in October. And I would like to apologise for the late publication of this report. It's just whilst we're gathering information together to try and make it as up to date as we possibly can. And colleagues should hopefully will appreciate that whatever we do, it's got to be a snapshot because of things that have not yet been said. As identified in the report, the revenue-based budget setting activity is almost complete, and the latest base budget is detailed in the report. Both the officer and member budget challenges exercise have concluded, and the final change to the base budgets will be reflected in the final budget to be considered in February. And I'd like to thank colleagues for their support in doing that member challenge. As noted in the report, and based on latest estimates of government funding, investment income, and the latest base budget position, there will be a need to use over 2 million of reserves to balance the 2026-27 budget. This would still be within the budget parameters for the sustainable use of reserves, i.e. no more than 10% of the general fund balance that we agreed when the 25-26 budget was set in February, but nonetheless represents a significant use of reserves. This is without any discretionary increases that Cabinet may propose. In terms of government funding, estimates have been made based on the local government finance policy statement 2026-27 to 2028-29, which was published in November, and the estimates are broadly in line with those previously reported to Cabinet in October. At the time this Cabinet report was published, the government settlement had not yet been issued by the head, but the head of finance will provide us with a verbal update as we receive the provisional statement on the 17th December, so a couple of days ago. And that will be done as long as colleagues are happy immediately after I've given this, and then I'll open up for discussions. So Simon Hughes will will just give us an update on the provision settlement. As noted in the report, November saw the submission to government of 3 proposals for local government reorganisation in our area. All of the proposals will require significant upfront investment, and officers consider it prudent at this time to earmark £3 million of reserves to contribute to the costs of that work. It is anticipated this can be funded from the 2024-25 and 2025-26 revenue underspends. The final budget report will include a medium-term financial plan. Although the council is expected to be superseded by a unitary council in 28-29, to support future financial planning, it is intended to continue to prepare a 5-year forecast, which we have done for a number of years in the past. This will demonstrate the extent to which the council is forecasting to abide by its parameters for the sustainable use of reserves in future years. At this stage, the medium-term financial plan is expected to show that the projected use of reserves needed to support the revenue budget in 27-28 is above the agreed 10% sustainable use of reserves limit. Work will begin early in 2026 on identifying ways to address this gap ahead of 27-28 budget setting activity, and I have no doubt this will be discussed when we talk about waste vehicle procurement later on the agenda. In terms of capital, the latest capital programme has been subject to an officer budget challenge process, and member challenge is scheduled, as I said, on the 22nd of December. A latest programme is included in the report. As with revenue, no growth proposals have been included in this latest programme, and I therefore recommend that Cabinet notes this report.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. And I believe, Simon, you are able to address us on the latest news from government.
Thank you. So, as has been said, we received the draft settlement on Wednesday afternoon. I've had a chance to review it at a high level. Before I explain what I think it means, I think I would just reiterate that the starting point for our estimate led us to a situation where we're expecting to take 2 million out of reserves to balance the budget for 467. The settlement, however, is more positive than we had in first thought, to the tune of over £400,000. So clearly that is good news, but it doesn't make a particularly massive dent in the 2 million of reserves that we're going to use going forward. What it does show, though, is compared to previous, if you remember in the summer, Vale was told that it would be subject to a funding floor that wasn't going to be 100% funded, but was potentially going to be lower than that. It is no longer subject to a funding floor at all. So actually, we should see still relatively modest increases in core funding going forward, which will mainly be through the expectation that council tax continues to go up by 3% to £5, whichever is greater. As was noted in the report, the pressures for Vale do become worse in future years. Clearly, there's expenditure pressures through inflation. Vale at the moment is currently heavily reliant on investment income balancing its budget, and we know yesterday that the bank base rate was cut, so that has a potential knock-on as well. So the settlement is welcome, but please don't assume that it has done much to mitigate the challenges financially that we'll face going forward. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you. Yeah, that's much appreciated. There's a lot going on there. And I do appreciate your roundup of that. Any questions on the Councillor Fawcett?
So the so Mark said the amount of potential reserves is at the 10% level. What is the 10% level?
So at the moment, Vale holds about 30 million in reserves. So 10% of that at the moment is 3. So that is why we're okay for the next year.
But not for the year after, because at the moment the MTFP is guessing it will be more than 3 million.
So how much is it?
Because obviously we've reduced that reserve by anyway.
So how much would it at the moment? How much is it looking at for the year after? And does this settlement affect whether that's below the 10% or not?
So we haven't projected an MTFP yet,
right?
But when we did the MTFP back in the February budget setting report, the use of reserves in 7-8 was expected to be nearly 5 million.
Okay, so that's going to be well over. Even though this is a bit of a better settlement than we expected, it's still got the same problem.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And we should also say the settlement is over a 3-year period now,
Yeah.
which helps us because it gives us a bit more certainty, but doesn't make us necessarily any better off.
Indeed. Yeah. Easier for planning, but
Yeah,
not necessarily a better position.
exactly. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any further comments? Awesome.
Thank you. You mentioned the costs of reorganisation that's going to be taken out of underspend this year and next.
The previous year, this year and previous year. Yeah.
This year and previous year. Whereas I remember the initial announcements from government about LGR suggested that the whole exercise would be paid for out of efficiency savings.
I think that's what they mean. There are efficiency savings.
And
In future.
in future,
Yeah.
but timing means that there's a
Yes,
hit
we
up
have to pay
front.
up front. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's obviously shared across all of the district councils and the county council. So that's how we. I mean, and it is that the team have done their best estimate of how much it's going to be, because clearly we don't know. But
I know it's
Moving feast as many things on.
moving feast and work on the crystal ball.
Yes.
yes. Yeah, we tried to put that in the budget, but we couldn't afford it.
I mean, the only one of the positives, of course, is we do have a 3-year settlement now. So, for what feels like an eternity, but it's actually only about 5 or 6 years, I've been coming to cabinet every year saying we don't know what the funding level will be, and we've made estimates. Sometimes we've overestimated, sometimes we've underestimated, but we do have more of a definitive indication. Clearly, that confirmed on a year-by-year basis. But we do have more of an indication to work from than we've had since 2019.
I was just thinking we don't have any potential savings on elections for next year. The government might want to cancel. Other councils have that. They've been banking on that in some circumstances.
So can I just make one other point? I did mention that in early 2026, once the budget has been agreed and gone through council, work will start on, if you like, doing a challenge on the new budget. So we did talk about doing that. For this year, but because of the way the settlement worked, we didn't feel there was a requirement. But next year there is definitely that requirement. So it will be for the officers and for members to be looking at their own individual portfolios to be trying to identify. And I always used to say savings, but I got my knuckles wrapped. They're not savings any longer because we've already cut down as the efficiencies. We are probably about as efficient as we're going to be. So we have to look at some hard facts to say if we are X million short, what could we do? I think we should be coming up with some options. Doesn't mean we're going to implement them, but we should do prudent planning.
Yeah, it will impact on people's decisions.
And not only is it key to deliver services as we're doing, but it's also key for us to be able to hand over to whatever the unitary authority looks like, a viable programme and budget. We have to do that because
we are required.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you. It's a lot to think about, and if I'm not sure if anybody you would see a point.
No. That's the look of me thinking.
Let's try to work out where. Yeah, we've already looked at the back of the couch. There's nothing there.
Yeah. There is a lot to think about. So well done. Getting a head start. And it just goes to show, I mean, all the way through this, since I've been involved in this council in 2019, we have constantly been shaving off as many points under Councillor Crawford, who's online. We've been very prudent, but I think now it's another level. Is that what you're saying, Councillor Coleman? I think
we definitely we've got to get that the eat into the reserves that we're currently planning for is not really sustainable, and we should be, we can set up what constraints we want on our use of reserves. We can spend it all if we wish to, but that just wouldn't fit in with our strategic objectives of being financially viable.
Councillor Paul.
Yeah, I've thought now.
Excellent.
No, I think that the advice that we're being given is very sensible. We're in a slightly odd position, I guess, in that we're facing pressure on the financial side as a result of government decisions around local government financing, and I think we should be frank about it. They are moving money away from councils like ours to Labour councils elsewhere in the country. They have their justification for that, but that is what the local government settlement does, and it's our responsibility to work within those means. And at the same time, due to other government decisions, we're facing local government reorganisation, which, whether you agree with that or not, brings with it constraints on some of the other decision making that we can make anyway. And I think our job as councillors, having effectively those decisions being made above us, is to do the best we can with the resources we're left with. It is quite right, this council is already very efficient by any measure. We've already found ways to spend money more efficiently in some cases, and have made decisions to stop doing things in other cases, and that's kept us financially stable, which was not the position we inherited 6 years ago, wasn't it? 6.5 years ago. And we just have to do another round of that. But I'm absolutely confident. We've got a very strong team of officers. We get very good advice. We will have to make some difficult choices, but I'm absolutely confident we can do that in the new year. The other thing I would say is the sooner we start making those decisions, the better, because any savings or reductions in spending we can identify sooner rather than later actually helps. Every decision we make this year then helps the position in the second and third years remain. But we have a good track record of doing this. I'm confident we can.
As we're having a bit of a pop, then the situation is actually made even worse, really, in the sense that in the government settlement and the strategy that they published, they stated that there's an assumption that councils will increase the council tax to the maximum amount available. That, if you like, then takes some discretion away from us in terms of if we wish to not increase the council tax or even increase it at a minimum level. And then to compound that problem, what they've done, they're taking the money away, assuming that we're increasing to the maximum level, but they're not allowing us to increase the council tax above the referendum level. So this is a double whammy, really. So yeah, I mean, it's now I understand why Councillor Crawford was quite happy to hand over the finance portfolio. It's taken me nearly a year to work it out. I've got there now.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in recent years we've also been very successful in finding other ways of funding what we want to happen, and I'm thinking in particular of the leisure centre decarbonisation, which we could not have done without the outside funding, and we could not have done that without the officers dedicated to making that happen. And I think that's something that we need to look at more in the future, is finding different ways of getting someone else to pay for things in basic terms.
Unfortunately, I don't see government grants increasing in level. I think they're going to be reducing, but the point is well made. Yeah, we should.
Thank you. I will take that as the end of the discussion, and thank Simon and his team once again, and all of Cabinet for working on this and in charge. So and for continued work as well, because we haven't stopped here. So it's very clear. So thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. And can I ask Cabinet to note this group? Very much. On to the final item on the agenda, which is the purchase of waste vehicles. Now, obviously, we have had members of the public and Councillor James and Councillor Foxhall speaking to us today, and I'm very grateful for their comments. And I would like to invite everybody to consider those comments again when we're thinking and discussing this. Councillor Clegg, I believe you're introducing this item.
Thank you, yes, Chair. And thank you also for the warm welcome to Cabinets. It's all happened rather sooner than I expected, but I'm very conscious that Councillor Gascoigne has had an even more eventful week than I have. Right, onto the reports. So this comes to Cabinet to seek approval for the Council, together with South Oxfordshire, to purchase 9 new refuse collection vehicles, RCVs, to be used on the household waste service. The 2 councils have statutory duties to collect household waste and recycling, and this is something we do very well. with residents regularly telling us that they rate services either good or very good, and both councils currently being in the top 5 recycling councils across England. The councils have a programme of purchasing new vehicles to replace those that approach the end of their viable working life. Vehicles breaking down or otherwise being unable to complete their routes leads to service failure and costly returns by other crews to complete those failed rounds. In April last year, the 2 cabinets each noted a report that outlined how officers would determine which vehicles would be recommended for purchase to the relevant cabinet member. Following adoption, this became the Joint Waste Vehicle Procurement Strategy, and it focuses on, firstly, maintaining the service, which is our statutory duty, the capital budget available, operability, and then when these are achieved, then looking to purchase the most environmentally friendly vehicle or vehicles available. It has been recommended that the 9 new RCVs to be purchased will operate with internal combustion engines, ICE, as this option currently best meets the priorities of our strategy. The original decision, made through individual cabinet member decisions, ICMD, by Councillor Gascoigne and her counterparts on the south, was called into the Joint Scrutiny Committee, as we heard earlier. And the committee's recommendations have been placed before this meeting and are considered within this report. Our own officers, and echo what's been said before, we would like to thank Joint Scrutiny for their recommendations, and they did identify a significant issue, being the lack of information in the original ICMD about how the decision was made. That has been largely corrected in this report, with much more information being put in the appendix. The reasons are long and complex, but in summary, the capital budget for 26-27, when the vehicles would arrive, would cover the purchase of these 9 ICE vehicles. Purchase of 9 electric RCVs instead, say, would exceed that budget considerably, and so may well hamper future spending flexibility when the technology may well have improved. All of the vehicles would be purchased new and leased to the contractor for use. Leasing vehicles would be significantly more expensive for revenue budgets. All vehicles could be operated from the current depot in Culham and from the new depot in Great Hazley. The possibility of storing and operating some vehicles from satellite locations has been considered, but rejected for a number of reasons, as outlined in the report. We are currently constrained by the charging capacity for electric vehicles at the current and new depots. What charging capacity we do have right now, and in the short-term future, is primarily reserved for electric food waste collection vehicles, of which we currently have one and more are anticipated soon, since we know they perform well across our rural districts. Lastly, purchasing RCVs that initially run on diesel does not mean that we are necessarily forced to stick with diesel the entirety of their approximately 7-year lifespan. Converting a diesel engine to one that can run on hydro-treated vegetable oils, HVOs, is fairly straightforward and cheap, and this flexibility is baked into the recommendation that we have before us today. Now, I'm very aware that some people are unhappy with this decision and would like us to buy electric or hydrogen-powered vehicles instead. As the chair of SEAC until a few hours ago, until Tuesday morning, I understand exactly where they're coming from, and I really wish all the technical and financial constraints weren't there. But we, as Cabinet, have to consider all of the corporate priorities and our statutory obligations to our residents in this decision, and unfortunately, the time is not right to switch to electric RCVs at this moment. It would place a significant level of risk on service failure, create unsustainable cost on the council, both the immediate financial cost and later opportunity costs, or lead to reputational damage by having vehicles sat inoperable at a depot. In summary, I believe that we have no option at this time but to place the order for these vehicles. As outlined in the report, a future report will come to us that updates the waste vehicle procurement strategy and sets out the plan for further purchases over the next few years. And I'd like to assure you that while I'm covering this portfolio, I will challenge officers to seriously consider and to investigate when and how we can further decarbonise our waste collection fleet at the right time and in the right way.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, yes, I really do appreciate Brittany calling this item in this decision. It is a very important one for many reasons. for the fact that this is a statutory obligation and probably one of the most obvious to the members of the public that we have. Everybody wants to have their bins clear. It is also vital that we focus on our climate action priorities, and for that reason, it is also an important decision. So I'm glad they've called it in. I'm glad we've had the chance to review it and refresh and put in further details. Well, there's so much, as you just introduced, there is so much there to consider. And there is a great deal of flexibility, I think, already built into it. And you're talking, and we talked about it. I did say that we have been talking about this a lot over last week. Also, and before you were here, I think I think it was Councillor Gascoigne was talking about the vegetable oil option and how it's actually quite easy to convert. There's lots of flexibility, and as our programme develops with the new centre, there are opportunities to rethink and purpose and shift any opportunities. And obviously, as technology improves in the future, there may well, and we've always said that. I mean, I'm really welcome you here as the portfolio holder in this case. You have come straight, as you said, from being the SEAC chair, and a very valued one there as well. And so obviously you're very conscious of that. Councillor Gascoigne was in the same position, and previously I've never held the waste side of things, but Councillor Coleman has. I've been very much involved in the climate side, climate action, and previously Councillor Whiteman, who actually was the one who I believe was one of the councillors who brought it into joint scrutiny before us all, was in this portfolio. So that is obviously it's been a focus of our cabinet decision making for a very long time. So I'm very glad to see that we are still discussing this. So I would open out to everybody to ask for comments and questions. And I am aware that both Paul Fielding's online and Susan Malcolm is online as well for any technical questions. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I was very pleased to. Firstly, very pleased to see Councillor Figg in the role, and congratulations to Councillor Gascoigne for the reason why Councillor Figg is now in the role. But I very much support his comments in terms of the direction we should go forward in, and I'm confident that this is realistically the only decision we can make at this point in the circumstances we are in. I think there's a fair point in some of the feedback that we've had that we shouldn't just be continuing to make decisions on the basis of things as they currently are. We should be looking forward to how we can change some of the circumstances in order to be able to be in a position to make a better environmental decision sooner than if we just carry on the way things are. I think that is a fair point, and I'm very effectively Councillor Figg has acknowledged that, and look forward with confidence to him moving forward on that basis.
Councillor Busham.
Thank you, Chair. Can I echo the welcome to Councillor Clegg? It's good to see you at the Cabinet, and I'm sure you're going to be a valued contributor to our discussions on this. I want to preface my comments by saying that, to my mind, the absolute focus here has to be on maintaining delivery of our statutory services to residents. It's the one thing that I can be assured of. A torrent of emails in my inbox is if the waste collections haven't worked. That it's the bread and butter. It's what our residents rely on us to do week in, week out. So we must do that. But after mentioning that, I must welcome Councillor Clegg's commitment to keeping on reviewing the types of vehicles available. But could I suggest that he also ensures that we look at the options at our waste vehicle depots for alternative energy sources? I spent a very enlightening day at the Oxford to Cambridge Energy Summit couple of months ago and heard from SSE Networks about the long lead time that they are now having to put in for delivering high capacity feeds to sites, particularly any that they see as speculative or unplanned. We would get put to the bottom, back of the queue, however important it is for our corporate aims, unless we register early and say, and we have a clear plan for how this can be delivered and used, because otherwise we don't stand a chance of connection for 5+ years. So I think keeping that piece of work open will be a key point to delivering on our climate commitments. But I agree entirely with the thrust of the report. This is the only sensible way of delivering the service that our residents rightly expect, and is one of our statutory obligations. So I'm very pleased to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford, I have to apologise. I should have come to you first.
No, not a problem at all. And also I'd like to welcome Councillor Clegg to the role. You've obviously been left holding the baby at the last minute, so to speak. So well done on that. I just wanted to talk very briefly about HVO. I'm glad to see that we're actively considering that. There are clearly a number of serious concerns about the supply chain with HVO, and also some cost issues. My understanding, though, is that most diesel vehicles these days can switch without any physical amendments to the engines to HVO, or in some instances very minor ones, and that they do produce a roughly 90% reduction in emissions. There's some arguments that maybe HVO is an element of greenwashing in itself, although other councils do use them. I was just looking online now, and to understand Mid-Suffolk run HVO waste vehicles, for example. I just wanted to check, though, that the new depot that we're in the process of setting up will have facilities there, or sorry, will potentially have facilities there to store HVO if we decide to go down that route.
I think that's probably an officer.
Yes.
Can an officer answer that question, possibly?
Hello, Chair,
And,
and yeah, thank you, Councillor Crawford, for the question. So the existing site has been set up with the existing demand for the number of car parking space in, and for visitors as well as staff. So we would have to reflect and review the setup on the site, and also the planning application and planning approval that we've secured for the premises. But it's something certainly we'll keep in mind as we develop the site.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Pickens.
Yeah, Councillor Portion said, the first thing he gets emails about in his inbox are waste. The second thing we get emails about is lack of infrastructure. And I've been going back on what Councillor Foxall said about making a decision to be ready. I think that is key, really, isn't it? That whatever options are available in the future, we've got to be ready for them. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to guess where technology is going. But if what you say is correct about high, what do you call it, the high voltage, the high capacity charging, or about storing alternative fuels, we do need to be ready. Or make the decision we're going to be ready, even if, I think infrastructure is really key to this.
It's a very difficult one to balance, I think, because we don't have crystal ball, I believe. So we don't know where it's going. And I remember having conversations probably in 2019 about this very thing. One of the cabinet members at the time was very into hydrogen fuel vehicles, and I know that's mentioned, but again, we don't know, and we would like to see this accelerated, but as we said, we have to be realistic, and we have to maintain our statutory statutory obligations. I did note that there is one of the reasons that we are constrained. I think it's the rural nature of our area with very long routes. But I think it is, we have said that at the correct time, we would definitely be we would definitely consider sort of new routes and ask the waste company to consider and map out their areas, their routes based on what we could, if we had an electric vehicle, if they to, we are planning ahead already. So I think I mean I'm happy with this decision and these recommendations. I think we have considered it, and I think one of the lessons learned is that we need to be mindful of the amount of detail that we can put into reports, just to make it clearer and more transparent. And that is what we want. It's not a matter of what greenwashing or something like that. It is actually sometimes we do make a mistake and we may not. We're so wrapped up in everything that we don't necessarily know that we're not transferring that information that we've been discussing onto a report. So I think that's something that we have to be mindful of in the future. Councillor Clay?
So yeah, I'm not happy with this decision, but I'm not happy because I want something that reduces the carbon footprint at 48% of what we produce. You know, clearly the obvious answer is we'll get rid of internal combustion engines. The difficulty we therefore have is then, well, how do we do that? So I think quite wisely now, back in 2024, the council produced its waste vehicle procurement strategy, and this was so that we didn't really have to keep revisiting the wheel every year. And in the strategy, it has an order of factors, and in priority order. And the first one is, as has already been stated, to meet our operational requirement, i.e. the statutory requirement of collecting waste. And the second one then is to meet capital and revenue budgets. That's agreed by council. I'll come back to that because both Councillor James and Councillor Foxhall have raised it. And then to make operational efficiencies, which we kind of broaden out to say, reduce the number of vehicles to the minimum that we require to do the job. In other words, we could end up buying lots of cheap vehicles, have lots and lots of them, but then end up having to crew them all, which would be more expensive. And then once we've done all of those things, then we look at the options that are available to reducing the footprint. So in the 3 points that came up, specifying the rounds that we want. So I think I would urge us not to specify the rounds, and maybe just perhaps misunderstood exactly what was being asked. But I think what we should be doing is asking when the issue really is about the new waste depot, that the rounds will need to be revised based on that depot, which hasn't been done yet. And I think what I would like to ask is to get the contractor to look at what would the rounds look like now, given the fleet that we've got, because that's what we have to do. And then to say, okay, if we had the following options, or come up with some options so we can use their specialist knowledge, because it's their business, with the officers to say, if we were to increase the fleet by electric, X number of electric vehicles, or by hydrogen powered vehicles, then how could we modify those rounds to make it work? And then in doing so, if we could make it work, what would be the cost? Okay, and then we can then go on to the second point, which is how do we make sure that the budget is there? So there is a risk of sort of chicken and egg, but and we do need to break out of it. But if I understand the way the process works, we can't really just put in an extra capital program on the basis that we might be able to buy this type of product. Okay, we have to put in the program what we feel is reasonable reasonably likely to come about. And the reason for that is that what we put in the capital programme, and we don't always spend what's in the capital, I know that, is we're committed to putting something equivalent in the revenue budget, which is the minimum revenue provision. And that really is a kind of a cost to us of borrowing money for capital. Okay, and we've just gone through the budget setting where you'll recall I did say we don't have any revenue flex, any headroom at the moment. So if we're going to do that, which we can because we would just have to borrow it against the reserves, we need to make sure that we're doing it being well informed. So we can't just add on a few million because we think something might come up. It has to be thought through. And then the final one is that we do need to look at the various options for that budget. So yes, break into the cycle of the planning. I fully accept what Councillor Foxall said. So I think, to be honest, I don't think I've said anything that the officers wouldn't have already been doing, but I think it's right that we put that on record such that we've given our direction. Bear in mind there will be some additional cost in coming up with options. That does cost money and time, but I think it was money and time that's well spent. So going back to what I said, no, I'm not happy with the decision, but I do think it's the best of the bad lot. So I will support this recommendation. I don't think it changes. I thank scrutiny for what they've done, but I don't think it changes materially the outcome of the decision. But it has given us a few things to learn for future ICNDs.
Yes, I think so. I'm going to revise my happy to contend. That's advice.
You're the chair, you can say what you like.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I'm just picking up on something you said about greater transparency and so on. It's worth noting that part of the reason we couldn't publish a full survey of the condition of the fleet is that the fleet currently belongs to Biffa, is their property. Yeah. Come May next year, we will be purchasing that fleet from Biffa, and it will be the council's property. At which point it is much more appropriate for us to publish data about the condition of the fleet. So we may well have decisions before May, but any decisions after May, I'll certainly be working with officers to encourage them to give. Perhaps not the full comprehensive survey report. I think it's about 4 or 5 pages per vessel, per vehicle, and there are nearly 100 of them. So I wouldn't read through all that. But some sort of summary that groups vehicles by their rough condition or on the lines of age or mileage.
Oh, sorry, and can I just say about that? Just what is into my mind, where we have to be prudent and plan well. So it's already been mentioned about the 20 hydrogen vehicles at Glasgow. We're going to procure at a cost of £7 million. I was looking into that, and they've actually cancelled the programme because 1, it proved technically difficult, and 2, there were risks about the budget. So there was where it was a really good idea, sounded feasible, and subsequently when they delved into it a little bit more, it wasn't. So that doesn't mean we should look ahead, but we do need to be approaching it realistically.
Yeah, realistically, and small steps, because I think there have been some rural councils mentioned, but looking into it, I think as well, it's not that they're transforming their entire fleet into electric vehicles or anything, but they are taking baby steps and doing it in phases, which seems, given Councillor Coleman's account, it seems like a sensible thing to do. As much as we want to address the climate action on this sort of side of things, we don't want to give up our very good service that we have and track record of collecting refuse from across the district.
There's a risk in doing so because technology is evolving, and so we could change out our whole fleet now to something, and then in 2 years' time find out actually there's something else that would have been far better. So not to mention the fact we can't afford it.
Yes, but that crystal ball might come in handy.
Yeah, I'll put it on Santa's list.
So,
can I address a couple of points raised by the...
Yes, you can.
So, Councillor James made 2 key points. Firstly, requesting a review of the vehicle agent options and capital budget. As I understand it, there is a review of the waste vehicle procurement strategy already expected quite soon. Firstly, for the reason that it mentions the current site and we're moving to another, but that's a great opportunity to review it and think a bit more about further plans. Then the latter point that Councillor James made around giving it a big green tick, continuing with diesel vehicles. I'm certainly happy to review the climate impact assessment tool. If nothing else, it's just part of me getting up to speed with this portfolio. I have a next briefing with Dominic Lamb on the 13th of January, so I'll pick it up and then. In terms of the point around route optimization, yes, I'm very happy to work with the contractor to look at that. I actually have my own technical background. I've never worked on road vehicles, but I did spend a couple of years looking at the route optimization of large ocean-going vessels. So not a million miles away. So I can ask some difficult questions of the contractor when that comes up. In terms of moving away from a single charging depot, I think I would need to work with Councillor Crawford that one, because that's strategic property.
It is strategic property, but there's also the operational impact.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah. It's and then largely the budget issue, I think Councillor Conn has already addressed. And yes, we will look at exploring these ideas with SEAC in the future.
So I think I think, as Councillor Conn said, I welcome scrutiny bringing this in and making us look at this, but I think we were pretty much there already, and we've considered most of these issues along the way, but it's still very important that there is that scrutiny and cabinet, and in this example as well, and others, SEAC and cabinet. That's what SEAC's there for as well, to advise us. So I think there aren't any more questions or comments. So if do you want me to read out all the recommendations?
I think you could just say
yes, because there's different versions of it, I will just say I will ask Cabinet to agree yes, I will do that. To agree the recommendations as laid out on the first page of the report. And I'd like to ask for a proposer. Would you like to propose? Councillor okay. And a second, Councillor Paulson. And are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. I would just that's the last item of the last meeting of the year, and I would like to close the meeting by wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thank everybody for their work throughout 2025. 2026 is going to be a big one too, so brace yourselves. But thank you everybody in the room and online, and all your teams. It's very much appreciated how much you do for the residents across the district. So thank you. And
Bertie, can we stop the broadcast, please?
popped up again. Oh, no.
Last minute.
I meant to say it.